So to no one's surprise whatsoever, my favorite console of all time is arguably Sony's worst platform of all time, and that is the PlayStation 3. I love this thing to death, and today I'm going to be talking about basically why I fell in love with this thing, my history with this platform specifically, why it's my favorite console of all time, and I'm going to show you guys all the different versions of the PS3 that I have, all the different, variations of the actual console itself. Talk about the features that I love and miss on this thing, and just the most insane platform I think that's ever been made, honestly. When you think about the hardware and what Sony was putting inside this thing, and what you could really do with this platform, especially over time as the software, kind of matured. And yes, Sony did take away some features, but all the things you could freaking do with this thing. I think this is honestly the most insane game console that was ever made. And it's part of the reason why I love it so much. It's just because it's so batshit crazy in terms of the feature set that Sony put in this thing. It was so much more than just a video game console. The slogan of "it only does everything" that they started with the PS3 Slim is very appropriate. Especially this original model during this original couple, like 2 or 3 years of the console's life cycle before they started taking away some features, which we'll talk about soon. But in any case, this video is going to cover sort of my experience with the PS3, why I love it so much, why I keep coming back to it, and just why it's my favorite console of all time. So as I stated many times in my videos before, I got my PlayStation 3 as a Christmas gift in 2007. I remember very distinctly because I was asking my parents and really hoping that I was going to get it. It came out in 2006 and it launched with that, really expensive $600 price tag, which is interesting because if you adjust it to inflation today, what it felt like was sort of like today if you were buying a PlayStation 5 Pro for its original price. I think a ballpark around that same cost is what it would have felt like if you're buying a PS3 in today's money. So it was really, really expensive, and the consoles were still selling out, and Sony was spending a bunch of money basically on just building these things. Like the cost to produce the PS3 was more expensive than the cost of the console itself. So Sony was actively just losing a ton of money on this stuff and throwing in all these advanced feature set. Sony really built this system, and it really felt like at the time they built this system to be the forever console. That this is the system that you're going to have 10, 20 years later hooked up to your television. And here we are, next year in 2026, the console will be officially 20 years old. And quite honestly, I think the PS3 has matured really exceptionally well, into this modern day and era. There's still a ton of features on this thing that can make this, a very nice addition to a living room setup. And the fact that you were getting, and still to this day, one of the best Blu-ray players on the market, and all these advanced feature sets and the UI and stuff, it was just crazy. But anyway, sidetracking myself, getting back to the point, I got my PS3 finally in 2007, and I very distinctly remember unboxing it, so excited. I hooked it up. At the time, I had a 28-inch, I believe, Sony Trinitron CRT, standard definition television. And it was basically one of those TVs that was built into like a home entertainment cabinet. So the whole thing, it was like one unit, but it basically had an entertainment center with a glass door and 2 shelves underneath. I'll try to find a picture of it online because, that's basically what I was using for many years, and I was playing all my PS2 games on there. I did not get HD until later, but I'll talk about that in just a bit. So I hooked it up using the composite cables that were, included with the console, and it was just basic 480i, straight up garbage resolution. But I put in the first game I ever played on my PS3 was Uncharted Drake's Fortune. And I was so excited to play that game. It's the reason I really wanted this platform in particular, amongst many others, but that was like the game I was really, really fuming over. I was really heavily into the Tomb Raider franchise and just loved Tomb Raider Legend and Anniversary and stuff, and later Underworld. So I was really heavily into those games, and I looked at Uncharted as sort of like, oh, this is the next generation Tomb Raider. I really want to have this. And I slotted it into my PlayStation 3 and played it on my CRT television and had a great time. And I remember that my dad came in to the room shortly after I set up the console. And he's like, oh my God, look at the graphics. Like, he was even floored looking at that. Because you have to keep in mind that this was still the time period where we saw substantial graphical leaps from the generations, especially from the PlayStation to the PlayStation 2. But the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3 was arguably a substantial jump as well. And so you're seeing these visuals that it just blew your mind. Like, you never saw games of this fidelity before. And yeah, it was just freaking awesome. So like, I had that experience and playing MotorStorm and stuff. After that, I was just really, really excited to get to the console. And yeah, I remember as well, it was shortly after I started really getting into the gaming news and really getting into the industry and following the industry. I was still watching E3 and G4 TV around this time, but I remember that my love for the hobby was really growing, because I was 13 when I got my PS3. Now I was sort of maturing, getting into my teenage years. And I just really, really got heavily into video games. And I started looking up more details, getting more knowledgeable about the technical aspects of it. And so I was learning more about HD resolutions and the benefits of Blu-ray and stuff like that, and sort of the power under the hood. And I was kind of getting a little bit more knowledgeable about PCs as well at the time, and getting, you know, just more interested in software. And so it was a few months after I went and I bought myself S-video cables, which were basically like a digital source that helped combine, I believe, the video signals into, it separated out the RGB channels. I'm trying to remember exactly what the definition of S-video really is, but it was basically a higher quality cable that helped produce a more clearer image. And using S-video, this was basically the maximum input I had on that CRT at the time. So it was only composite and S-video. I did not have components. So, but I was able to get 480p actually out of that source, and it just looked a lot cleaner. But I still like really wanted more. And I remember at the time, my parents, so before I got my PS3, my dad got a 52-inch Sony XBR3, I believe, which was a 1080p television with glass sort of around the frame, around the bezel. And it cost $5,500 at the time in 2006. This was like the state-of-the-art, the best TV, the best LCD TV you can get. Keep in mind, plasma was like the big thing that people really wanted. But, you know, my dad was spending $5,500 on this TV, and I really wanted to, like when I was home for the weekends and my parents weren't around, I would unhook my PS3 and hook it up to that TV just to get the picture quality and stuff. And it just blew my mind how much more fidelity there was on screen, especially as well because my dad had a really nice Bose 5.1 setup. So I had like the whole, you know, I was able to experience the whole shebang, if you will, about what the feature set was inside this thing. And no matter, like, the better the display, the more technology I seemed to hook this console up to, the better the experience just seemed to get. And yeah, it was just insane. It's funny because my dad still has that TV. It still works to this day. I mean, those things were really built to last, unlike a lot of things today. But anyway, like, I really wanted HD, and I was getting into making YouTube videos. I had a YouTube channel in late 2007, but it wasn't really gaming focused. And then I started making gaming focused videos shortly after I got my PS3 on a different channel. Then I closed it and I opened up this Industrial Gamer channel, and where I continued to make basically gaming videos ever since. But I really just wanted more. In some of my earlier videos, you guys see that I'm playing my PS3 off of my computer monitor, which was an HP, it wasn't even 1080p. I think it was 1440 by 900, if I remember the resolution, something like really weird like that. But it was like, it came with my desktop computer at the time, and I used DVI to HDMI to basically hook it up to my PlayStation 3 and to get a nice 720p video source. And that's why you see in a couple of my older videos, if I'm playing console games, you see like there's an HP monitor and bezel that I'm playing off of, and it's literally was that monitor. I think it was like 17 or 18 inches. It was really tiny by today's standards. However, back then that was actually a decent size for a computer monitor. And you know, even though it was a much smaller display compared to my 28-inch CRT, the video quality and the fidelity of the image was just so much greater than what I had before. So to me, like, the trade-off was worth it. I was seeing better graphics and getting a better experience playing off that computer monitor. And as I started reconfiguring my room, ultimately I ended up just putting a desk in my room with a computer instead of having a TV. And so I was basically all in on playing off of a desktop display instead of a television, because my room was a lot smaller, and also the cost of televisions back then. I mean, my parents, I think, got in their bedroom a 37-inch Vizio, which was 1080i, and even that was over $500 if I'm trying to remember it correctly. And that was, Vizio back then was actually a really good brand. They were making really nice, competitive, great cost-effective televisions back then. But yeah, even it was just much more expensive. It's not like today we can go, to Best Buy or whatever, spend $200 and walk away with a decent 50-inch television. It was not like that at all. TVs were still very expensive. So, but anyway, I was happy with that experience, and I was playing my PS3 off of my computer monitor and getting 720p video signal, which was fine because most of the games were 720p anyway, and just really, really enjoying it. However, that is not to say I did not have some issues with this console. About 7 months after I got my system, it broke. I got a yellow light of death, and for whatever reason, it just... I had no idea what happened. At the time, I didn't know what happened, but I went with Sony, and luckily, because it was still under warranty, I had it RMA'd, and they sent me back a brand new system, actually. It wasn't even a replacement. It was a brand new platform. And then I used that for a little while, and it broke again. And then I had to get it warrantied again. I went through, I think in total to this day, 7 of these particular PS3s, 7 of these. This is the E01 model, which was supposed to be slightly more reliable than the A01 models, which were the launch units. So, but still, it did not feel that way to me. I had literally 7 of these. In fact, this is the last one that broke, which was the one that broke during New Year's of 2023. I think I was live streaming and I said, yeah, my PS3 broke literally while I was playing a game. And yeah, you go through 7 of those consoles. Believe me, at one point I was just like, I was ready to say fuck this and just go to Xbox 360. I did not have a 360 at that time. So it just kept on breaking, it kept on breaking, it kept on breaking. It was so weird because I never had a PlayStation break. I never had a PS2 break whatsoever. But I don't know what it is. Something with this system and the way it's designed, and it's almost infamous at this point because we know that basically the original RSX chips, the APUs that were in these consoles were very, very unreliable. And, Sony even went to great lengths themselves to kind of, fix these consoles. And there's a couple of different variations. Like these days, it's weird because thankfully, there's a whole community of fans that have really looked into why these things are breaking and are doing their best to make sure that they are kept as alive as possible. So if you have one break, you can almost easily find a repair service on eBay or whatever, or take it into a store. And, if you're working with someone who's really passionate about these systems, they know exactly what to do, exactly what the problem is. But yeah, for whatever reason, these systems broke, and it didn't really seem to matter whether you took care of it a lot. It seemed to be almost a guarantee that these things are like a ticking time bomb. They're gonna break one day or another. No matter what you do, there is no way of saving them whatsoever. The only thing that you can really do to prevent it, if you're not going to go in and make some modifications or swap out the RSX chip with a more reliable one, the only thing you can that seems to be really recommended is changing the thermal paste of the console, because whatever thermal paste that they used was apparently not up to par. So I went through 7 of those PS3s. In fact, I made videos on this channel where I was like, my PS3 broke again. And, I was like a teenager at the time, so I was so emotionally involved in it. I was just like pissed off. I was like, I can't play my games. This is like the worst thing in the world. So yeah, it was insane to think about. I don't know why in particular I had such bad luck with it. I think it's perhaps because I know before, back in the day, that I did not treat my launch unit very well. I said before that my TV had one of those built-in entertainment centers with a glass cabinet. Well, I kept the glass cabinet shut while I was playing it, and I think it trapped so much air inside that enclosure. There was an open space in the back, but I just don't think it really had great airflow. And so I can sit there and I can say, well, you know, that's probably, yeah, that's like why that system broke it. That makes some sense. But then there are other instances where I literally had this thing like on an open desk sitting here with nothing obstructing it all around, and it had plenty of room to breathe, and it still broke. So it was almost guaranteed no matter what you did that these consoles were gonna break, and there was nothing you could do. And it was just really, really unfortunate, and I got really, really annoyed. And yeah, that console, this one right here, is the one that broke on me a couple of years ago. I wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. Again, I'm very careful about the way I treat my systems now, and you guys have seen that with my console collection, the condition some of these old consoles are in. So this thing had plenty of room to breathe, didn't have anything obstructing it, and I used it sparingly. And even after using it sparingly, this thing broke. And yeah, currently it still has a yellow light of death. Now I have a replacement in my closet, which I'll show you guys later via an unboxing video. Basically, yeah, for whatever reason, these consoles are super unreliable, and it's almost a guarantee they're gonna break. It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when. All right, guys, we're going to unbox the consoles next. Now we're gonna start off with the oldest model and then go to the Slim as well as the Super Slim. And here I have my, well, not personally my original console since that broke, but basically, you know, the same console that I used to have. And this is the one I got in Christmas of 2007, the PlayStation 3 MotorStorm bundle, 80 gigabytes. This came out a year after the original 60 gigabyte versions, and this was the final model, I believe, that ever retained the PS2 backwards compatibility. However, it was done through software and not through the actual, you know, hardware emotion engine chip. Which is how they got it to work in the original launch models. But this unit to me was just fantastic because it looks effectively identical to the 60 gigabyte version, the launch version, except you get a game with it, you get 20 gigabytes more of hard drive space, and this was when PlayStation actually reduced the price of this console by $100. So this was $499 back when it came out. So value-wise, you know, you're getting a free game, you're getting more hard drive space, and you were still getting the same backwards compatibility. It was just fantastic. This is otherwise known as the E01 model, which is the last couple digits there of the hardware SKU. Anyway, yeah, so on the front here, it's really nicely advertised. You get a nice view of the system here with the 6-axis controller, and then a view of MotorStorm right there in front. On the side here, nothing really special. And then on the back, we got a couple of screenshots of games showing stuff like Lair, Heavenly Sword. There's the first Uncharted, Warhawk. You know, now that I have been collecting games for my collection, I pretty much got all these except MLB The Show. But back then, I was so excited for Uncharted, and of course, I tried out Warhawk, and Heavenly Sword was also something that I played a lot in demos, basically demo booths at storefronts back in those days. So that was really cool to see. You also have the contents here on top. It tells you what it comes with and all that cool stuff. And then on the side, it's pretty much the same. And yeah, so let's actually get to opening this up. It's nice that Sony included a handle for this. You know, this was sort of the era where, you know, these consoles were a bit heavier than I think anticipated. So it was nice because you went to the store, and if you wanted something, you could just go and grab it, and it had this nice kind of carrying handle. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, if we open it up here, a lot of it is just kind of cardboard based here. And then we're supposed to have like a side panel here with additional cardboard, but mine, when I bought it, you know, used here off of eBay, or actually this console is like open box. It's practically brand new, as you're gonna see, but it didn't come with this cardboard panel. Now, the controller itself, this is an original 6-axis controller, and this is effectively looks identical to the DualShock, except it doesn't have the rumble, and this was back when Sony, you know, was basically still fighting that legal battle between, I guess, the people who make the haptics for DualShock, and they couldn't use the branding. So this effectively is just a standard 6-axis controller here with, it's basically just no rumble, and it's a lot lighter as a result. When you're playing games on this thing, it was like, oh man, this thing feels incredibly light, and It's because if these things are slightly translucent as well, and if you kind of look, there's nothing, basically here in the handles. It's just a board up here on top holding it in place, and the rest is all plastic. So yeah, as I said before, I'm not a huge fan of the controller design. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but this was always, I mean, the technology was kind of cool back then, but I didn't really care for the way this controller felt in hands. But effectively, yeah, you do get your 6-axis controller there. On the side here, we have, well, I have an HDMI cable, but back then this thing came with standard AV cables. And then we got our mini USB cable here, which is used to charge the controllers or basically plug anything else in that you want. So there's that. We got our large power cable. This was like one of those larger, cables they used for like computers back in the day. So this thing had like a massive power supply built in, worthy to note, because back then the 360 had this massive block. So at least you didn't have to deal with that with this console. But yeah, this was like a beefy power supply. This is before they moved on to the 2-prong connector. And then if we keep digging here, hold on. We got some Ethernet cables that was included. This was actually the original cables, so I never even opened these because, I don't really need these are probably Cat 5 standard Ethernet cables, so they're probably really slow by today's standards, but yeah, you do get some Ethernet cables included. And I threw this in there, although this didn't come with it. This is a PS2 memory card adapter. So in order to get your save files onto your PS3 here, you need to buy one of these, and you would plug your memory card in and then plug it through USB into your PS3, and then this would be able to read and transfer all of the data on your memory cards over to your PS3. I got one of these a couple of years ago, which is great because these have gone up in price tremendously. These are actually really expensive, and it was already pretty pricey when I bought this thing, but I think these are well over $100 now if you try to buy one yourself. Which is a shame, but yeah, it's kind of awesome because you can basically back up and save your files on your memory cards to the console here, and this works with any PS3, I believe. Even if it doesn't have PS2 backwards compatibility, you can still plug the memory card in and transfer save files over, so that is useful. All right, and yeah, let's actually get to, oh, hold on, before we do that, I got a couple of goodies here. So we got some instruction papers as well as a Blu-ray disc, a little advert here. So this was sort of our quick start guide, and then the Blu-ray case here, excuse me. This was really interesting because it basically contained a series of advertisements and trailers, however, in full HD 1080p. Which was not a given. You have to keep in mind that YouTube back during this time didn't even support HD, and HD was still really brand new. So to have videos basically on disc with this pristine of quality, these trailers, was actually really nice. But only some PS3s came with this. This particular model didn't, from my memory. However, I went and bought one of these off of eBay, and I believe you can get these for like $5 or $10. They're like really dirt cheap. And it just contains, like I said, a couple of trailers and kind of shows some information about the XMB. It's got all that old PlayStation branding and stuff like that. So I threw it in here because it's still relevant to the system. This was one of my favorite adverts, this Play Beyond, which was their kind of gaming slogan at the time. But if you open this up, basically it has information about the console, but I love all these screenshots basically showing the old PlayStation Store. This is back when it was in a browser, and look at all these games, and just the way that they did this is phenomenal. Yeah, I really loved flicking through this as a kid, and it was just really cool. You got your system, then you got these cool adverts. You kind of got to see all the games that were coming up for the platform, and I really just loved the branding and everything that they were kind of going for. This black on red aesthetic was just really cool. So that's awesome. And then we have, of course, our safety guide here, which just has nothing. This is all original, but it kind of shows you how to replace the hard drive, and then basically any other information, troubleshooting and stuff like that. And then, of course, our quick start guide, which was pretty cool. I mean, again, just basic setup, general information, but you got some screenshots of like the old XMB on there and how that used to look and stuff like that. And then this is showing you basically all the connector cables. they had to like educate people on using HDMI and why HDMI was so much better. And here it supports all the video resolutions based off the cables that you have. So quite interesting. And yeah, how to do the controllers and stuff. The PlayStation 3 supports 7 controllers, which is just insane. I don't even know. There must be some games out there that use all 7 controllers, but I'm not sure. And then, oh yeah, here's some information about transferring your save data through memory cards and buying basically the memory card adapter. That's really cool, man. So yeah, these are just kind of nice to have. Just kind of shows basic setup and general information in different languages. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I believe that's everything in here. So let's get to getting this console out. So this thing is quite heavy. Whoa. You have to be very careful. And especially because this thing is really prone to scratches and stuff due to its piano finish. I'm not even going to be touching the system with my bare hands. I'm going to be touching it through this plastic wrapping it's already in. Anyway, here it is, and yeah, it's a very heavy system, man. But as you can see, the condition of this particular PS3, there we go. The condition of this particular PS3 is just nearly perfect. I mean, when I got this thing, and keep in mind, mine already broke, but when I got this thing, I was just floored because I've seen very few systems without like just a myriad of micro scratches. And even if they're not visible, you know, with like sun kind of reflecting off of it, you can still kind of see them when you shine light directly on top. And this one is very, very pristine. It's the best conditioned system I've seen. But man, it's just phenomenal. It's a little dirty here. I need to wipe it down, but I haven't honestly used it since I got it. But yeah, as you can see here, just the beautiful piano finish. I love the logo, this particular logo, the PlayStation 3 Spider-Man font, as a lot of people like to call it. But I just think it fits so well with this design here and what they were kind of going for. And of course, here on the front, let me try to be careful here. You can switch the PlayStation logo in either direction if you need to stand it up. And then these are all touch capacitor buttons. And then our memory card reader, which would open up, and then we can have SD cards and micro Pro Duo cards, and CF is compact flash, I believe it stands for. Anyway, this was also kind of useful because while, you know, you could back up photos and all this stuff from digital cameras back in the day, what was useful about this feature was backing up your save data via PSP, because the PSP would just use Pro Duo memory cards and you can just back up your files directly to the console, which is nice. This right here is where the hard drive goes. And then on the back here, gotta be super careful, very delicate. On the back here, we have some HDMI and an Ethernet, optical audio, and your AV, as well as your power, and then your serial number, and then it's just vents with different information there on the other side. So yeah, man, this particular console and the condition that it's in, when I got it, I was just floored. But yeah, I practically baby this thing, and yeah, it's just I just really like the design. You know, it looks expensive, and that's the thing. When you're spending this much money for the system, it doesn't look like a little plaything. It looks like an expensive piece that just demands to be on display in your living room or something like that. So while the design doesn't speak to everybody, I do personally like it. All right, next up here we have the first revision of the PlayStation 3, along with the change in logo that would stick for PlayStation until the current days. This is the PS3 Slim, specifically the 160 gigabyte variant. Now, I had bought this because one of my 80 gigabytes, I think it was the fifth one I had, actually broke, and they were no longer selling and no longer, fixing. Basically, my warranty had already expired for that console. So after going through like 5 of those original systems, I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna go and buy myself a PS3 Slim. And I think I did a video or something about that, showing off, hey, I got a new PS3. And I walked over to GameStop down the street and just bought this thing. So anyway, this console is still that console, and it still works perfectly fine. This is the system I think most people probably have, and I think a lot of people really love this design the most. It's got just a very sleek design. It trimmed a lot of the fat of the system. However, this did come at the cost with the loss of a lot of just expandable features and stuff that last system had that you just couldn't really replicate. I guess you could replicate it by using USBs instead, but this definitely felt like a system more geared towards video games, which I think helped PlayStation kind of rebrand this system into being like more of a consumer-friendly focus. So this thing was just really cool and very quiet, and just a great revision overall. And I used this console for many years, and it's just fantastic. Let's go ahead and open this up. So it's pretty simplistic inside. Let's take a look at cables and stuff. As you can see, Sony moved on to the standard 2-prong power cable, which they still use today in their systems. So this was a much needed change. I also have bundled here with it, looks like an HDMI cable, another HDMI cable, which again, this console did not come with an HDMI cable. So these manufacturers didn't really put HDMI cables in until the PS4, the Xbox One, which were really the only choice. They were still kind of gimping out on the cost savings and stuff like that, and trying their best to just reduce what they had to put in the box here by putting standard def cables in. But yeah, there's an HDMI cable. We also have another USB, again, just a standard micro USB cable to plug and charge the controllers into. Let's get this to focus. Not like you guys haven't seen this already though. So yeah, just a standard micro USB cable, or mini USB, excuse me. And if we take a look over here, we have a DualShock 3 controller. There we go. Which basically looked identical to the Sixaxis, except it actually had rumble and stuff like that, and they took away the translucency of the actual shell. So if you shine light on this thing, you actually can't see through it, unlike the Sixaxis controller. But anyway, this thing had a lot more heft to it. It had the rumble features, and pretty much outside of that, it's effectively the same controller and whatnot. But yeah, here's the DualShock 3 branding. Again, I still didn't care for this controller. It's just the way that these thumbsticks feel, and when you push them together like this, your thumbs touch. At least mine do, so I just didn't really care for this particular design and what Sony was kind of going for. And I don't remember having that issue on the PS2, but that's probably maybe because maybe I was I was a kid, so I had smaller hands, so maybe I just didn't have that issue. But yeah, I didn't really care for the DualShock 3 or the Sixaxis controllers at all. We also have some paperwork in here, which a lot of this stuff is still sealed, but it's basically the same general stuff, your quick start guide. You got some more colorful screenshots now and kind of showing the setup of the system, plugging in your standard def cables for your HD console. Don't you just love it? Information about the ratings, and then we got some more kind of quick start guides, this time with the new branding on it and such. So yeah, not quite as colorful, no pamphlet with advertising and stuff like that. And of course, Sony changed the slogan with the PS3 Slim. So instead of Play Beyond, it was now It Only Does Everything, which started a whole brand new ad campaign that we all know and love. Fantastic. And then we just have our system, which was a lot lighter, which is why I can do this with one hand. And this is the 160 gigabytes Sony PS3 Slim. And you gotta really just love what Sony did here. First of all, they made this whole thing matte black, which a lot of people absolutely love because it prevents fingerprints and a lot of micro scratches from being on the system. You still got some piano black finishes like the logo up here, and then of course your trim for the CD tray. And then your actual power and eject buttons were physical back then. You got 2 USBs down here. Right here is your hard drive expansion slot. This would slide off and you can just pull it out and upgrade it there. And then on the back, pretty much the standard basic thing. This is the 3000 model. And then basically here behind it, we have Ethernet, HDMI, optical, and AV multi-out with our vents there off the back. So yeah, it was just a much sleeker system. I mean, you're looking at this thing's basically the size of a large textbook as far as its thickness goes. And although it's, you know, slightly longer, it's still retained like that sort of, you know, basic PlayStation 3 design. So it still kind of had that kind of sloping top, but it was just a lot better, just a lot sleeker, a lot more quieter, and just a lot better to hold. And I just think it kind of meshed really well together in just a lot of people's home entertainment systems and whatnot. So anyway, this was a good revision. I thought it still looked really good. I thought it was still very attractive. And yeah, I ended up getting this system because again, my 8GB broke. And you know, although it was kind of light on features, I have to admit that I really enjoyed the quietness and just the smoothness and the reliability of this thing. This is still that same console that I bought all the way back in, what was it, 2011, maybe 2012, whenever that was. So over 10 years and this thing's still working perfectly fine. I mean, that's just awesome to see. So anyway, yeah. All right, and our final console, the final PlayStation 3 revision, and this one is a bit controversial because there's a lot of people who hated this design and thought Sony just really cheaped out, but what this system lacks in attractiveness, it makes up for in reliability. These systems in particular, and this is sort of why I got it, these seem to last the longest, have the least amount of issues, and are also the easiest to repair. So I ended up getting this thing, the PS3 Super Slim, and this was a 500GB variant that actually came with Grand Theft Auto 5. It was a bundle with that game. But I bought this I think a year ago or so. It was shortly after I did my whole console collection video, which is why you guys didn't see this system. Because I wanted something that was just going to kind of keep for a very long time and you know, just be reliable and stuff like that. And I found this system, which was they were selling as open box, which is always sort of a red flag on eBay because a lot of people put open box when it's not really open box. But this was actually an open box, never used before system. So this effectively was brand new, and I only paid a couple of $100s for it. So it was a great value, and I've been using it honestly to play through a couple of my games in my collection, and it's been super smooth. Very, very smooth. So here's a look at the case and stuff. You know, this was the end of the generation, so we got all these sort of, you know, heavy hitters that were already out: Uncharted 3, Assassin's Creed 3, God of War 3, and the Amazing Spider-Man movie tie-in game, which was actually pretty good. And yeah, you can see Sony just absolutely trimmed out a lot of the fat. Now, I really didn't like the design of this system. However, I have to say, seeing it in person, it is a lot better than I thought it would be based off of the pictures. It's actually built decently well. It doesn't feel, I mean, there's parts of it that look and kind of feel cheap, but a lot of the system still feels heavy and has like a nice quality to it. Anyway, so this is all original accessories, by the way. So this effectively is a brand new system that I got with original parts. And as you can see, we have here our standard, you know, mini USB cable. Here is the basic, never before used, standard AV cables that came with the PlayStation 3, all the PlayStation 3s, the composite cables that only gave you 480i. I remember when I first got my PS3, I hooked it up to my Sony Trinitron, and so I was playing in 480i, and even upgrading to S-Video was substantial. So anyway, and then here's our standard 2-prong power cable, which, you know, just is the same one that came with the PS3 Slim, and a brand new DualShock 3, which is just tremendous. Been using this as well, so it's always nice to have a brand new controller that works perfectly fine. And yeah, this thing is just awesome. So I'm making sure to take good care of this. Anyway, let's get to actually unboxing the system itself, because there honestly isn't much in here. Now here is the brand new copy of Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PS3. Again, this came with a bundle with GTA 5, and well, I already have GTA 5 on the PS4, so, you know, although I played it on the 360 back in the day and went to the PS4, it's always nice to have the original last gen, or, you know, not really last gen, but the original launch copy, I guess. And I'll probably just keep this sealed for forever. I don't really see a reason to open it. But anyway, yeah, brand new copy of Grand Theft Auto 5, should I need it. And then we have little tiny instruction booklets, which, as you can see, are still sealed. I never even broke the seal off of these. So again, basic stuff that it kind of comes with. And then there's the system. I mean, it really doesn't, to me, it really doesn't like make itself apparent how small it is until you actually kind of see it and hold it in person, because it is very, 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 very tiny. And I've been babying this thing for, well, ever since I got it, and been trying my best, because it is not a used system. It is brand new, and that means there's no micro scratches on the piano black finish accents. So as I open it up here, I mean, look at this thing, man. Brand new PS3 Super Slim. Look at that piano black finish. Look how perfect that is. So I've been keeping really good care of this thing, trying my best not to touch the finish, and just dusting it off ever so slightly whenever I need to use it. And yeah, as you can see, it just looks perfect. Just looks phenomenal here. We got 2 USB ports. It's already got a built-in 500 gig hard drive. There's no reason for me to upgrade it. And then we got our slot loading disc tray, which we'll take a look at in a bit. Just get a better grip here. On the back here, we got Ethernet, we got HDMI, all the standard, you know, basic ports there. And man, I have to say, using this thing, it's quiet. This is a quiet system. You barely even hear anything when it's on, which is just awesome. Trying to get a better grip here, 1 second. There we go. There we go. Anyway, this is basically how I handle the system when I set it up. When I try to use it, I'm just like, don't touch the piano finish, because I just don't want all these micro scratches. Anyway, the slot loading disc tray, that's how it looks in action. A lot of people make this mistake, and the thing is, if you're going to get this particular console version, a lot of people make this mistake of trying to force open the slot loading disc tray by using your hands, like sliding it down. And you're not supposed to do that. In fact, in all the instruction booklets in Sony themselves say that you risk damaging this thing if you try to force it down like this. You're supposed to press the actual eject button here, and when you do press it, it does open for you. It goes down. But yeah, so if you're gonna get this console version, just be careful and try your best not to actually force it down. So I've not actually done that once when I got this system, because I knew ahead of time, like, oh, these things tend to break, and the mechanism tends to become loose over time if you try to force it down. So you're supposed to use the eject button. But anyway, yeah, I mean, even, I gotta say, I didn't like the way this console first looked in videos, and I think there's even, you know, footage of me during the, you know, E3 reveal and stuff like that, where I was just like, why would they make this? It looks so ugly. And it really does look ugly in pictures and stuff like that. However, I have to say, using this thing and actually seeing it in person, I mean, it's the least attractive PS3 by far, absolutely, but this thing does not look absolutely horrible. And when you have one that's in brand new condition like this, that's just, you know, perfectly taken care of without any problems, I mean, yeah, when you start to notice all the little details, I love just the rigid, you know, lines here and the dots along the end. It looks decent. You know, it looks okay. It doesn't look awful, doesn't make me want to like not look at the system, but it's definitely the least attractive of the platforms. However, you are getting the most reliable PS3s when you are investing in this thing. So it's a trade-off, you know? And ultimately with these systems, especially now that they're getting just older and older and older, I wanted something that was gonna stay and be reliable. And now that I'm actually consolidating my console collection and getting rid of a lot of excess, that also means that some of these extra PS3s that I have that I'm just simply not using anymore are probably gonna go as well. So this is gonna be like basically my main system. I've been using it as my main system, and it's just been super reliable. And honestly, I am happy I invested in it. I'm happy I got really lucky and got a brand new unit as well. Effectively a brand new unit. The box just wasn't sealed, you know, and that's why it's open box. That is what open box is, a non-sealed but non-used platform. And yeah, I was just really glad that I found someone who was actually selling a truly open boxed PS3 Super Slim. All right, everyone, it's time to talk about the top 10 most insane and best features about this console. We need to discuss this. This is part of the reason why the system is my favorite. I just think it's the last truly custom built and custom tailored platform before they started moving over to PC parts and making these systems more strictly about gaming. This was like the last true all-in-one entertainment media device. I'm sorry, Xbox One, but just because I can plug a cable TV into your input does not make it better. This console and everything that it included, and the way it still feels today when you boot it up, I think it's just aged exceptionally well done. And I'm going to talk about the 10 features now. So we need to start off by talking about the XMB, the cross media bar is what it stood for, and that's the main home screen, the main UI of the PlayStation 3. Now, I mean, keep in mind, this console was released in 2006, and they launched this thing with a full native 1080p UI, which is just insane. Like, that's part of the reason why it looks so fantastic when you hook it up to even a 4K TV today, is that it still looks sharp, it still looks very well put together. You have this simple UI of just rows with you know, different columns and stuff sort of mixed in between. You can flick between the different styles of what you were kind of looking for. There was settings, there was users, there was games, pictures, videos, and all this stuff. And just the motion of the UI, the fact that when you put a game into this console, you can have basically a little short video of the game playing with some nice full screen artwork. I mean, this is stuff that not even the PS4 adopted next generation, and even the PS5 right now with its UI has remnants of this, but not quite as flashy or dynamic. And yet this was all tailored for this console specifically. And even your saved video files, you can even scroll through and have actual animated thumbnails of all these video files. And so as you're basically flowing through, you can watch these 10-second highlights of these clips. And it just looks freaking incredible, man. It looks really good in motion. You have all your music on there as well with artwork, and then different visualizers depending on what you wanted to listen to, you know, and you can choose and customize it. And these visualizers would be reactive to the actual music that was being played. So it was just phenomenal the way it looked. Pictures with slideshows and different dynamic slideshows and things like that. I mean, man, the XMB in this platform, and then all these settings. We have to talk about the settings because you have all these enthusiast grade settings that were just nuts, you know, and it's just fantastic. You know, you can just adjust basically everything that you want. And I just think it was a UI that's very easy to use today. Yeah, you know, it can be a bit sluggish when you get a lot of stuff on the hard drive. However, you can mitigate this because you can put in, and we'll talk about this in a little bit too, you can put in a solid state hard drive in this thing and have it speed up. So yeah, anyway, I just love this UI. The fact that it's in full native 1080p and it has all these animations, I think help make it feel like a modern UI that you can still use today and still really get by with comfortably well. Of course, Blu-ray playback was a big thing with this game. Not only were all the game discs on Blu-ray, but you also got with it one of the best Blu-ray players that you could spend your money on. Now, back then, Blu-ray players were like $1,000 anyway because it was brand new and it offered just a huge upgrade over HD DVD and especially DVD. But the fact that Sony was putting in basically the best Blu-ray player that you can get your hands on, and you were getting basically the best pristine picture out of it. And then you had all these options with full 7.1, uncompressed audio. I mean, it's just incredible. So you had all this great, just Blu-ray in general was such a forward-looking thing. And it's still being used in consoles today. I think the Xbox Series X still uses standard Blu-rays. Of course, we moved on to Ultra HD Blu-rays, but this thing, we still have Blu-rays for the next generation for the PS4 and Xbox One. So it was just a very forward-looking choice, and I think because of the extra space added on those discs, it helped really help make this console mature really well. And even though you had to install consoles to the hard drive, the extra space meant that the games came on one disc and had plenty of storage for developers to really add more stuff to the games, such as higher quality video files, or just more content in general that was natively put on the disc that you didn't have to worry about downloads for. And the good old days, of course, of free online multiplayer. I mean, still to this day, I think that's probably why people still go back to it, because it doesn't matter what you want to do. You can play any game you want online for free without any cost. In fact, if you subscribe to PlayStation Plus, they just gave you free games every single month. And so it was great value being added on top of an already decent service. Now, yeah, Xbox Live was more well put together and had less issues than PSN. Especially because if you recall, the PlayStation Network was hacked, and for 2 months it was actually down. No one could play their games online. That was massive back there in the day. I think it was 2011 or 2012 when that happened. But in any case, you had still free online multiplayer, and I think it's why people still go back to play this console today. It's why you still see videos about this console being made today, because you could just buy the console, buy yourself a game, and there's no additional price to go play online. The thousands of hours that you want to put in Call of Duty, you can do so at free of charge. Just buy the game and you have the console and you're good to go. And that's awesome, and that's still saying something. And I'm really happy that Sony still has the servers for a lot of these games up. They haven't taken PSN away, and I think that Sony needs to continue to actually, support, as best they could at least, PSN on the PS3, because I think an article just came out, that saying that there's still millions of people using their PS3 month by month. So this console still gets a lot of love. People still absolutely adore it, and you get free online multiplayer, which is just incredible. And we need to touch upon the enthusiast grade options in this console. I mean, every single setting that you wanted to adjust for this thing, I mean, no matter what you wanted, this thing had the ability to basically adjust. You could choose audio codecs for your music files, depending on what you wanted to play back. If you wanted to play back compressed MP3s, advanced audio codecs, different media files, WAV files, or whatever the case can be, you could choose the audio codec, and then choose as well the bit rate of the audio codec for like the most obscure reasoning, no matter what you wanted to do. And at the same time, you have full, uncompressed 1080p video and uncompressed 7.1 PCM audio with this thing. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And then you got infrastructure mode, like Wi-Fi and stuff like that, with built-in ad hocs and all these different adjustments, basically. You can go in there and choose different or enable and authorize different video codecs like DivX and all these things. It was so like advanced. Basically anything that you want to do, and I would bet that probably for most users, 80% of the options that this thing had, most people didn't even know what to do. You could choose upscaling options for the PS2 games, whether you wanted to force it full screen or have it, keep it in its original standard, format. You could even choose if you wanted to added a smoothing layer to your PS2 game, so it would look smoother and you would not get as much jaggies at the expense of a raw image. It's just like, when you think back on it, and it's just like so insane. And then you have USB support as well. You got media file support. If you wanted to actually transfer files from your computer to your PS3, you can do it over the internet. You don't need a USB stick. You just set up a media server on your computer, which takes like 5 minutes to do. You download a program, it does it for you. And now you can transfer all the files on your computer and access your computer's hard drive through the internet on your PS3. How the fuck, like why? This is what I'm talking about, the insane feature set with this thing. It's just like anything that you want to do, it can practically do. And I think that's why the slogan, it only does everything, it's so appropriate. And yeah, especially this particular console and the ones before it that had the full PS2 backwards compatibility. This thing was just insane. So yeah, I gotta give it props for all that. We need to also talk about a feature that Sony removed, which a lot of people probably don't know about unless you were around on YouTube during these days. But you had an install other OS, other operating system feature. There were people, this is not a joke either, there are YouTube videos where people actually did this. There are people putting Windows on this thing, putting Linux on this thing. You could install a different operating system in addition to what Sony put on this thing. So you'd have like a game console and you can have this thing boot up to Windows or boot up to Linux, you know, and use different things. And there were legitimately people on YouTube showing you how. Now Sony's removed this feature, which is just so sad. I'm like saying to myself, like, why? This is like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Even if a lot of people didn't use it and it presented a lot of issues, especially with security, I think Sony should have kept it, at least for the older model systems, man. But yeah, you could back in the day install like Linux on this console and like do all this advanced stuff and effectively use it almost like a Linux computer. And you know, especially when it came to modding and sort of the hacking of this system and the emulation and stuff. I think that's probably why Sony actually removed the feature set entirely. But I just think about that. The fact that you could install Linux on a game console. What the fuck? Like, why? But you know, people were doing it, and it's just like again, it speaks to the fact that this thing had so much insane stuff put into it that was probably not useful for 99.9% of consumers, but the fact that it could do it was just insane. And still to this day, no other console can do that. How about this? The memory card reader as well. Now, this was before the era of smartphones. I mean, the iPhone was just coming out around this time, right? But a lot of people had digital cameras, and if you wanted to back up all your photos, you'd need to take that SD card, put it into this PS3 here, and then you can just transfer all your photos and videos onto the console itself and keep a permanent back of it. You also have Pro Duo memory as well, which is what the PSP used. And so like the PS2 memory card reader that I just mentioned, you could take your memory card from PSP, put it in this thing, transfer over your saved files, and I think some games even utilized it as well to give you some extra content. I think Assassin's Creed Bloodlines gave you some extra content if you had basically a PSP connected to your PS3, and you could do so via the memory card as well as USB as well. But so that feature hasn't completely gone away. It's a little bit different in terms of being able to transfer your files over, but it was nice to just put in the memory card here because it meant you could basically have a permanent save file backup of all your PSP games onto the memory card and onto this system. So it just helps secure it even further. Yeah, I think outside of that, I don't know what anyone else used that slot for. That's kind of one of the reasons why they removed this whole thing later on, this whole disk memory card tray. But you could do that. It's cool. Full PS2 and PlayStation backwards compatibility. Now this is a bit of a compromised choice, I know, because you have to get one of the earlier PS3 models to get full PS2 backwards compatibility. But man, I mean, having one system that could basically play all your PlayStation games to that point, was just mind-blowing and fantastic. And it's also the fact that they outputted these games and upscaled these games with better image quality. It wasn't like it's done today where, you know, and that's one of the criticisms that, you know, Microsoft has with the Series X is when they output these 360 games to the Series X, they're just doing a basic bilinear upscale and you lose a lot of detail. And so at least with the PlayStation 3, it was actually upscaling it and giving you the options to actually create some type of smoothing filter on it to give you better image quality. And if you look at the side-by-side comparisons, you do see a cleaner and more detailed image when using the upscaler algorithms that Sony used. So it's not perfect, you know, especially on this particular console, the EO1 model. It's not perfect because not all PS2 games are backwards compatible. It's about 90% of the total library. There are some games that do have problems, but the fact that you still had that and it was effectively, you know, most games you shouldn't have an issue with. But again, just the fact that that's in there and that the upscaling algorithm that they used was phenomenal and looked better, it's just great. So it was just an incredible feature to have, and yeah, I was just really happy with it. Who remembers PlayStation Home? This thing was awesome. It was a social feature set exclusively on the PS3, and it was shut down in 2015. I think there are people who are bringing PlayStation Home back, and I think it's available privately to use. However, I don't think it's public yet. But PlayStation Home on this thing, you know, went through so many different iterations, and still to this day, it just reminds me a lot of just the fun experimentation phase that Sony was doing back then, and trying so hard to like make all these advanced things and feature set and these little games and these experiences. But PlayStation Home, man, I do miss those days of going in there, even though it was really flawed and it was kind of stupid and just hilarious at times. There wasn't quite anything like it before, and just having the whole PlayStation community being able to jump into a living space together and interact and stuff. You met a lot of really cool people on there and had some fun times with bowling, playing exclusive content, and just exploring the ecosystem of PlayStation. So yeah, that was really cool. Of course, we gotta talk about storage expansion, which for me really helped make this console, again, feel more modern than it really was. The fact that you could just, you know, unhook this and put in a brand new hard drive, any laptop drive, 2.5 inches, which is what the PS4 used as well. So you can put like a terabyte hard drive space in this console and be perfectly fine. You could also put an SSD into this console. However, due to the limitations of the SATA interface it used at the time, you don't see massive gains with an SSD that you normally would otherwise using modern techniques. However, it does help a lot with at least loading the XMB and all the icons at the home menu, and you do see some faster load times with games, and definitely installs as well. It's just not so substantial over the hard drive implementation due to SATA limitations, but just the idea that you could do that. You could put an SSD into your console. Any laptop drive would work. I can go right now, go on Amazon, spend 20 bucks and get a 500 gigabyte SSD, put it into this thing, and it works perfectly fine. So again, just these feature sets and the ease and the flexibility of it, arguably Sony has kept that same, not really feature, but that same accessibility for you to change the SSD in the storage space. Even with the PS5 right now, you can go and buy yourself an NVMe and upgrade the storage space individually. But it's awesome because it really helps save on cost as well. You know, especially because when you have something like the 360, which had proprietary hard drives, a lot of those hard drives, even though they're basic hard drives in a shell, because they're proprietary and have proprietary connections and software, they cost hundreds of dollars for just like the smallest storage space. So this was awesome to see, you know, basically, and helped, I think, give the system a lot of longevity in the long run. The last really cool feature that we need to touch upon, and it's something even a lot of people today are still screaming at Sony to implement on the PS5, custom themes. And not just custom themes in the idea that you could download and add and change your themes to what you saw on the PlayStation Store, but we're talking fully customizable, create your own themes on the PS3. Not even the fucking PS4 had this. You could go right now on the internet and look up PS3 themes and download anything that you see on the internet, and they are themes that people created themselves. You can download software that helps you customize and add and change the colors of things, and you can create literally your own PlayStation 3 theme from scratch and create a file and have the console recognize that and then implement that on the dashboard. You can install anything whatsoever. There is a website, I think ps3-themes.com or .net, back during the day, where you would just have a whole database of tens of thousands of themes that people created in their spare time. Some of them were game related, some of them were sports related, some were porn related, but you know, like you had basically custom themes that people had created themselves for free, and you could just download them to a USB stick, transfer them over to your console, and boom, you have a custom theme that someone made in their spare bedroom, and just, you know, now it's on your console. Just absolute insanity. And this was also coupled with the idea of the full screen artwork with games and the different sounds and things that the console could make. It would change, the themes would change the sound and navigation of the platform itself. The themes were dynamic as well. You can have them move and change images and stuff like that. Man, custom themes. The PS5 doesn't have that. I mean, we barely got it with the PlayStation 30th anniversary stuff, which they brought back. But even the PS4, the next generation afterwards, they had custom themes, but you did not have basically the granularity of having people being able to create their own using software and then uploading that to the internet for anybody to use. Man, this was such an insane platform, and just the more you look into it, the more it's like, holy shit, it could do that? Which is why, again, I can't help but love this thing. It's absolute insanity. That's the definition of this console. It's just insanity. It comes with so much shit, and you can do so much shit with it. So in the end, what keeps me coming back to this console? Well, I have to say, I think when you kind of break it down, you kind of look at everything, it's the user experience. I mean, just from booting up this system, seeing the full 1080p UI, seeing the full screen splash artwork with the little video files of the games you're about to play, and then flicking through it. I mean, on my console, I have all like these old trailers, you know, put in from the era, like on the hard drive, and I have like all the recorded E3 conferences, you know, put in on this thing. So it's like when I turn it on, it's like a hub almost, a portal that goes back to that era of gaming and that time period. And just the games, the excellent games, they're so replayable. You know, that's the thing about them, is that even the long games, you know, the games that take a little bit more time to play, it's just so replayable. They're so well put together. It's like a mashup of like the very best of studios and this period where developers were really experimenting and having great success, and there wasn't all this, you know, annoyance of you know, just awful business practices, and just there's barely any content shoehorning in, you know, it's just all this microtransaction stuff. I mean, you still had some of that, right? Like you had online passes during this era, which were a big thing, and them trying to stop used games. And certainly you had buggy games around this time, but it's just like when you got a game, you just felt like you got a complete experience, and that they did sell you content over time, but you know, you weren't like locked off from being able to enjoy the game because you simply walked away from it for a couple of months. There wasn't any seasons in multiplayer or anything like that. But I mean, that's the other thing, like you have free online multiplayer. I can jump into this and go back to any of those games, especially because some people are reviving the servers for the games that did get shut down. So you'll be able to go back and just really play those games anytime that you want with a group of people who also love the game and are continuing to, you know, keep the games alive and well and playable. And that's just freaking incredible. And I just think at the end of the day, it's this version of Sony that I miss the most, you know, like the humble Sony that was like, yeah, we screwed up and we're gonna really take a step back and take a look at the platform and see what we can really do. You know, it was not all perfect, but it was like this period, the later half of the PS3 when the Slim came out, all the way through the entire generation of the PS4, that era of Sony of just continuing to push the boundaries and having innovative technology with great games and great stories and the great franchises and the reboots of these great franchises, and then the smaller games, the more obscure games and stuff like that, and supporting those developers. It's just this whole era and this particular version of Sony that I miss the most. And sadly, it's just it seems like we're so far beyond that with the current generation right now with the PS5. I mean, I don't even know what people are going to think of the PS5 over time. And I love the PS5. I think it's a well put together system. I just think there's part of it that's lacking a soul, you know, that's like lacking not really a purpose, but just a personality. You know, I feel like that's with the PS5. Like, I love that platform and I love it for different reasons, but it's definitely not on the same level as the PS4, and even that console I believe was not even on the same level as this system. But it feels like we're so far removed from any of this stuff, and it's hard to believe that, you know, this console's going on 20 years old next year. It's nuts. But even then, when you hook it up to a TV today, HDMI output, 7.1 audio, full 1080p, you know, HD. And yeah, you're not getting that always with the gameplay experiences, but the fact that the console supports that and it's ready to take advantage of that technology meant that as you got better technology at home and more stuff to improve your setup, this console was right there taking advantage of that. Blu-ray playback, the media server stuff. Man, it's just awesome. Anyway, I hope you guys don't mind me talk. I know this was a long video, but you know, I wanted to go over just all the reasons why I really love this console, why it's really my favorite console of all time, why this time period is really my favorite of all time, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Be interested to hear what you guys think of the PlayStation 3, because I remember back during its prime, not everyone was really favorable towards it, but certainly, you know, over the course of many years, and especially these days, a lot of people look back at this console with a lot of love and just great fond memories of. I know for some people this was their childhood, quite literally this was their first console, which is just insane to think about, but it just it makes me feel old. But yeah, this was just fantastic. Anyway, hope you guys have a good one. Thank you so much for watching this video and sticking in there, and interested to hear what you guys think, and let me know what your favorite console of all time may be if it's not the PS3. All right, peace, have a good one.